Hello there and welcome back to this Flutter course where today we're going to be continuing Unit 5 where we're going over the basic widgets in Flutter. So today we're going to be going over the container widget which allows us to do quite a few things. So without further ado, let's get right into what those things are. Alright, so the container widget allows us to add painting, positioning, and sizing options to the child widget all from one widget. So essentially what I mean by that is that this widget allows us to essentially configure where we want our widget to go. And where we want it to go, how big we want it to be, and so on and so on. Essentially what this is a rectangle that's going to be a wrapper for our widget that we can then sort of utilize and do quite a bit of stuff. So let's have a look at a very, very simple example here. So we have a widget build method, right? And we return a material app with the home of container. And here's the container that we have. And for container, we just do a new container, and then we do set the alignment to center and the child to text with the input high. So yeah, so simple as that, very simple stuff. And so that essentially is how this is going to work. So without further ado, let's have a look at implementing this in the code. All right, so here we are in the code. Let's go ahead and remove this. Yeah, let's remove that. There we go. And home here, we're going to have container. Okay, and then here we're going to do container. Container. Equals, and then container. There we go. And we can do alignment, axis alignment. Alignment dot center. There we go. And child is just going to be text with high. There we go. Simple as that. Really simple stuff. Nothing complex at all. We're just setting the alignment to center and the child to text high. So let's go ahead and run this. We can just do Command S or Control S on Windows. Or no, wait, nope, I was wrong because it's not actually running on the device. So we have to actually start up before we can actually see the results. All right, and there we go. So as you can see here, we now have this text high in our emulator here, and it is centered. So we can also do alignment dot something like I don't know, maybe center right. Let's reload. There we go. You can see that it's center right. We can do alignment dot bottom center. And there we go. You can see it's bottom center, and so on and so on. So yeah, so this is just the alignment property of container. Let's go ahead and go to container to the actual declaration. Go to declaration. There we go. And as you can see here, we have a bunch of different options. So we have a padding, color, decoration, foreground decoration, width, height, constraints, and so on and so on. So we have quite a few options here that we can actually assign to it. We're going to be going over a few in today's lesson, but essentially this is just the sort of very, very basic idea of a container. Essentially is a rectangle that houses a child, and we can use that rectangle to position that child within it. Okay, so this is great and all, but we can't actually see the rectangle, right? Can we? So let's have a look at how we can actually assign a color to the container so that we can actually see where the rectangle starts, ends, and so on and so on. All right, so to add padding and margin, I know I just talked about color, but we'll see how to get the color in a second here. Anyway, so to add padding we can add padding using the padding property and margins using the margins property. So these are both properties are built into the container, and since the container is essentially a rectangle, we can add a margin to it. And we can also, so the margin essentially just means sort of how much space we have between it and its parent widget. And then the padding is essentially how much space we have between it, between the edge of the actual container and the child widget. So that's the difference there. And we can actually add padding to a widget on its own. So without wrapping it in a container, we have a specific widget for padding. So it's called the padding widget. But we can also just use a container for it as well, and just add all of this into one widget. So we use the edge insets class to specify where and of what size our padding or margins should be. So here we have a container, and we set the margin to edge insets.all to 40.0 DPI, and you can see here that we actually have 40 logical pixels. So we haven't actually gone over logical pixels, but essentially they're just the Flutter device independent pixels. So yeah, so we have 40 logical pixels here. And then padding, same thing. We have 40 logical pixels. And you can see here that we set the color of the container to blue. And then just alignment to center right. This is going to be this is going to align the child inside of the container. And then we just set the title to text high, right? And so you can see here that the margin makes this gap here between the black gap. So if you didn't have the margin, it would just extend. The container would extend to fill the screen. And then the padding makes this high right here move 40 pixels to the right. So from there, so that's the padding for high. So that's actually how the difference between those two and how that works. So let's have a look actually at how we can actually implement this in the code. All right, so here we are in the code. Let's go ahead and change a few things here. So first of all, let's not change anything. We can just do color here. Let's set the color first of all. Let's just say colors dot. Let's just say blue. I don't know. Let's say green. Let's do green. And if you're wondering where this color comes from, if we go to and then declare. Whoops. Nope. Let's go to declaration. There we go. Yeah. We have this class colors here, and then we have a bunch of different colors, and we're actually getting this from flutter material.dart. So we're actually importing that class from there, and it just has a bunch of colors for us. Okay. So let's set the color to colors.green, and let's hot reload, and there we go. You can see that it fills the screen. Now let's add some margin here, and remember, use the edge insets class. And you can see here that we have a few edge insets options. So we can set it symmetrical, which we pass in vertical and horizontal, and it'll symmetrically add the edge insets. We can do all, where we pass in just one value, and it'll automatically add it to all sides of the actual container. We can do only, where we specify what edge insets we want, and then we can do from left to right bottom. There we go, left to right bottom. Or actually no, left top right bottom. My brain fell asleep there for a second. There we go, left top right bottom, and then we just pass them in like that, and so on and so on. So there are a ton of different options that we can actually use here, but we're just going to use edge insets. Whoops, edge insets dot. Let's do all. Why not? And let's do 48.0. Why not? Okay, and you can see now that's going to add a margin. There we go. It added a margin. Now you can see the high text is sort of it's a little bit too it's sort of intruding on the bottom there. So let's add a padding between it. So we're going to do padding, and then this is also going to be edge insets, and let's do edge insets dot only and do bottom, and let's do 30.0. All right, and there we go. You can see that's going to add a little bit of that padding, and that essentially is how that works. Now let's try something like we can do bottom 30.0. Let's do left 40.0. You're gonna see that's gonna slightly change it. There we go. Let's do alignment dot just center. All right, and there we go. That's going to change it a little bit like that. So yeah, there we go. So that's essentially just the container widget and how we can use the margin and padding and color option inside that container widget to sort of see how exactly that works. And by the way, by default, the container widget is going to try to fill the screen it's going to try to be as big as possible, essentially. So yeah. Okay, so we can also set the height and width of our container if we want. But the important thing to note is that since in Flutter, size is usually passed in from a parent, and a widget will use that first. So it's going to use the things that it got from the parent first and foremost. We need to make sure that our parent widget will support us adding our own sizing. So if we just use a material app, it's going to ignore the size that we pass into it. But if we wrap that inside a center widget, as you can see here, then the size works. And as you can see, our container is now 200 by 200 as we specified here. So let's go ahead and actually implement that in the code. All right, so here we are in the code, and let's go and add it in. So width, let's do 100.0. Let's do 200.0, why not? And then height, let's also do 200.0. All right, there we go. And I'll save that. You're going to see that this is going to change nothing. There we go. You can see that material app doesn't allow us. But if we, on the other hand, wrap this container in a center widget, which will allow us to set our own size and width, to height and width, I'm sorry. And then center child. There we go, container. Then you're going to see that this actually is going to work, and it's going to actually use the width and height that we specified. and our container is now 200 by 200 pixels. There we go. All right, so that's the last thing that we're going to have a look at here is the transform property of the container. And so the transform property of container takes in a matrix 4 object, which actually allows us to do a number of things with our container, such as, for example, rotate it. So you can see here that we actually have a container with height 200, 200, and then here we add a transform, and we use matrix 4.rotation z, add in a 45 degree angle here, and so it rotates it by 45 degrees. And so that essentially is how that works. So pretty simple, but it can be pretty useful if applied correctly, especially with animations. So let's go ahead and have a look at how we can actually use this in the code. Okay, so here what we're going to add is a transform property, and remember we're going to use matrix 4. There we go. And we're just going to use matrix 4 again. There are a ton of different things that we can use here. We can actually even use from list, where we can add a bunch of stuff, use it together. But let's just use rotation z. Why not? Because I think that's what we're going to be doing most likely, just using rotation z and pass in radians, so 245.0. And there we go. You can tell that is going to rotate it. And there we go. All right, and other than that, then that's actually all for today's lesson. So the container is a pretty simple widget. You're going to be using it quite a bit. At least I use it quite a bit, just because to align things correctly, it just really does make alignment a lot easier. Next time we're going to be looking at row, which is going to be a very important widget. I'd say it's like the top 10 most used widgets in Flutter, most definitely. So yeah, row, pretty important. I'll see you next time. Till soon.